The wind slices across frozen trees. A fighter jet screams overhead. You think you know Sweden's strength, stealth submersibles, Gripen jets, cutting-edge tech, but none of those is the secret. Sweden's real weapon is woven into its soil, its laws, its people. Something every citizen, every town, every winter day plays a part in. This is Sweden's Totalförsvar, and today we crack open how a nation builds a fortress not just of metal, but of society. Centuries ago, Sweden was a power to be reckoned with. Empire builders going deep into Europe, mastering boreal forests, frozen lakes, ice-studded terrain. The cold, the remoteness, the terrain, these were never weaknesses, but allies in disguise. Sweden's history taught it that to survive, you build resilience. Fortify within hardship, hide strength under quiet. Fast forward to modern day. The Gripen, light, fast, agile. Designed to fly from short secondary airstrips, to operate in Arctic winters, to refuel, rearm, vanish. Its Delta Canard design, advanced avionics, increasing integration of AESA radar, electronic warfare systems, all impressive. On paper, those are what people expect from Sweden's military. Gripen jets, submarines, well-trained units. Sweden sees threats in its neighborhood and has invested accordingly. After Russia's actions in Ukraine, Sweden revamped its defense posture. The 2025 to 2030 Defense Resolution emphasizes both cooperation with allies and comprehensive internal strength. But here's the twist. All that hardware, all that tech is essential, but not the secret weapon. Because Sweden's real edge lies deeper, in a doctrine called total defense. In Swedish, it is Totalförsvar. It is a mindset, a structure, a promise that if the worst comes, the whole society fights. Not just soldiers, but civil defense, government, municipalities, private business, every person from age 16 to 70. Civil defense is not some backup plan. It is baked into laws that say public services must work even under attack. Emergency preparedness, continuity of government, local authorities must be ready. Hospitals, power grids, food distribution, everything must be resilient. The goal is to deny any aggressor the satisfaction of breaking society's backbone. And then there is the Home Guard, Hemvärnet. It is not a token reserve. It is locally recruited, deeply embedded in communities. These are folks who know the terrain, the winter, the roads, the woods. When central command is too far, when supply lines are stretched, these local units can be the first line of defense, not somewhere else, but right where people live. The real genius of total defense is how ordinary life transforms into military resilience. Sweden assumes that if war comes, civilians will still have to eat, work, communicate, and keep hospitals running. That means every supermarket, every energy company, every municipal office has a plan for crisis, and not just for a snowstorm, for war. In 2018, the government sent a pamphlet to all 4.8 million households called If Crisis or War Comes. It told people to stock food, water, medicine, batteries, even cash. It explained what to do if supply chains break, if power goes out, if the internet collapses. Sweden literally mailed its people instructions on how to be part of national defense. That was not paranoia, that was preparation. The Home Guard enforces this principle in uniform. Roughly 20,000 strong, these part-time soldiers train regularly, blending civilian jobs with military roles. They guard infrastructure, monitor coastal areas, and can mobilize within hours. Think of them as the spine of local defense. They are not elite special forces, but they are persistent, widespread, and hard to bypass. Add in geography. Sweden's landscape is not a friendly place for an invader. Thick forests that stretch for hundreds of kilometers, tens of thousands of lakes cutting supply lines to pieces, winters that freeze machines and men alike. The country's own military planners know any attempt to occupy Sweden is a logistical nightmare. Pair that with civilians already drilled in survival, and an enemy would not be facing one army. They would be facing a nation that can vanish into the trees, cut bridges, and grind down morale over time. And this is not just theory. Sweden ran war games throughout the Cold War that assumed it could never match the Soviet Union in sheer numbers. Instead, the idea was to hold out long enough, inflict enough pain, and keep society functioning until reinforcements arrived from allies. Today, with NATO membership, that strategy has teeth. Sweden does not stand alone anymore, but the principle of national resilience remains the same. Of course, Sweden still invests in high-tech deterrence. The Archer artillery system, for example, can fire 6 rounds, relocate, and disappear in under a minute. Its submarines use air-independent propulsion, making them nearly silent, able to lurk in the Baltic for weeks. The Gripen jet is designed to land on highways and refuel in minutes. All of these platforms extend the time Sweden can hold out, but they all serve one greater strategy: buying time for the nation's secret weapon to kick in. That weapon is not hardware. It is the refusal to break. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, it was more than just a regional crisis for Sweden. It was a wake-up call that its old model of military neutrality was no longer enough. Suddenly, the idea of being a buffer state looked less like security and more like vulnerability. Within months, Sweden applied to join NATO, and in 2024, it finally cleared the last political hurdles. This changes everything. Sweden no longer relies solely on the idea of holding out until help arrives. Now, it is help. It brings NATO a strategically crucial position on the Baltic Sea, new airspace to integrate into the alliance's defense, and a civil defense doctrine that NATO planners quietly admire. For Moscow, that is a problem. Russia has long viewed the Baltic as its backyard. With Sweden inside NATO, the Baltic is no longer a Russian pond. It is a NATO-guarded bottleneck. Sweden's air bases, highways, and islands all become launch pads for Allied operations. Its coastal missile batteries and submarines become part of a regional shield that stretches from Norway through Finland to the Baltics. But here is where the secret weapon matters most. Hardware can be bombed, submarines can be hunted, fighter jets can be shot down, but you cannot bomb away the will of an entire society that has spent decades planning to resist. Sweden's law literally states that every citizen between the ages of 16 and 70 has a duty to contribute in times of national danger. That means if Russia were reckless enough to strike Sweden, it would not face just soldiers on the front lines. It would face resilient towns, businesses wired into national defense, and civilians who have rehearsed what to do when the lights go out. It is a strategy of denial. Deny the enemy quick victory. Deny them the ability to paralyze society. Deny them the political gains of a swift strike. Sweden's bet is that no one will risk a war of attrition against an opponent so stubbornly prepared to absorb punishment. NATO planners see the value here. In an era where disinformation and hybrid warfare are as dangerous as tanks, having a member state that has trained its population to resist disruption is priceless. Sweden's preparedness strengthens the whole alliance by making one flank nearly impossible to intimidate. And it creates an uncomfortable question for adversaries. If a country of just 10 million people can mobilize its entire society to make invasion impossible, what message does that send to larger nations that have not prepared the same way? So, what does all this mean? Sweden may not have the largest army or the flashiest arsenal, but it has something far more difficult to measure and even harder to defeat. Its strength comes from a society that refuses to collapse under pressure. From fighter pilots to grocery clerks, from engineers to students, everyone has a role. So here is the question. In an age of uncertainty, when great powers are testing each other and the world feels less stable, is Sweden's model of total defense the ultimate superpower? And if it is, why are so few countries adopting it?